All right. For those of you are joining us, my name is Edith Yeung. You are at the right place. I am going to quickly stop the sharing and share my video. All right. My name is Edith Yeung. I'm very, very excited today and welcome everybody joining Founders Hong Kong. And today we're going to spend about an hour with King Leung, who is the head of Invest Hong Kong in terms of financial services and Fintech, to share with us like what's the latest and greatest in terms of Web3. But before we start, just to recap what Founders Hong Kong is all about, we are a nonprofit organization with the mission to connect Silicon Valley with founders and investors in Hong Kong, and really wanted to support Hong Kong as a startup ecosystem. So every month we have a program similar to this, either in person or over webinar, to basically interview expert founders and investors is all related in supporting Hong Kong. So today I'm super excited to have King Leung, as I mentioned earlier, who is the head of financial services and Fintech from Invest Hong Kong, to join us. And I'm going to invite King to join us on video. Hey, hi King.
Hello, everyone.
How are you?
Good, good.
Awesome. I love the fact that both of us have a Hong Kong background. I'm in San Francisco, so I'm in the evening. You are early in the morning, 8:30 a.m. joining us from Hong Kong. And so, King, lately there's so many positive news and coverage about Hong Kong is going all in into digital asset and Web3. Particularly me sitting in Silicon Valley, one of the main reason I asked you to come join us is because I've been hearing not just from Hong Kong founders, but founders from the US and all over the world been asking me, hey, should I go check out Hong Kong and what's happening there? So this really has this conversation. So I'm just going to keep it super open, open-ended. Like, what is happening in Hong Kong? Tell us about it.
Well, in a nutshell, we are just so excited about the assertive stance of the Hong Kong government in really leading the way to provide a safe, at the same time with clear guidelines in allowing a lot of the industry players to serve their customers, both in terms of the institutional investors as well as retail investors. So naturally, when our leaders in governments, from the Policy Bureau to our Financial Secretary, the regulators, SFC, HKMA. In fact, this is almost unprecedented that so many senior officials from the governments came out to announce in unison about the support to the virtual assets industry at the Fintech Week on October 31st last year. Now, so when that announcement came out, to be honest, I think from our observation, because we talked to a lot of industry players, I also have to say that initially a lot of folks were quite skeptical. They were like, well, is it for real? Because, mainland has been banning cryptocurrency for some time. So is it really true that Hong Kong is allowed, right, to offer this kind of services to not only the investors in Hong Kong, but also the rest of the world? Now, so essentially, if I were to sort of like boil down into perhaps 3 phases, because initially I'll say between, say, November, December, so that's the time that people were still skeptical. And then by like January this year came along, through say April or so, there's been so much enthusiasm, but mostly among the crypto firms with the mainland Chinese founders that have basically scattered around the world, in Singapore, in Dubai, but they're now all flocking to Hong Kong. So that's almost like the second wave. The third wave is what you just alluded to. But probably, I think from March onwards, we have begun to see some international big names, including the US. They also came to Hong Kong to check things out. So naturally, again, I can go on, but there are just so many actions that we did, we mean the governments and the regulators did, to essentially give the confidence that, to the community that we don't just talk the talk, we will walk the walk. Again, I'm happy to elaborate once we have a bit more time.
Yeah, so I think there is many area in Web3 and digital assets. But I think like the two key announcement that you have announced recently, starting in June 1st, that is related to the digital asset trading platform, basically the various different crypto exchange. My understanding is that actually you already have a license from a few years ago with HashKey and OCL already got approved. So how is this new license different? So let's say if I'm an exchange from somewhere in the US and now I want to explore and apply, how would I go about learning more about this?
Well, I think the short answer is you are correct. We already had a regulatory regime even before June 1st this year. So OSL and HashKey were the two that got approved, like months or years ago. But then I think in fact, there's not just one, but there are numerous feedback that we received from the industry in which there have been, requests that we are able to open up, this kind of like crypto digital asset trading to retail. And then there are others, on insurance, on derivatives, and so on. Now, of course, I think from our standpoint, we understand that if this is what is needed to provide a more conducive environment to do business, then I think, of course, we have to balance the risk so that we are able to sort of gradually address those requests. So by June 1st, now, unlike previously, that we did not say that, okay, we're now allowing retail to trade, for example, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and so on. And now we do. Now, so by June 1st, actually, as the different exchanges apply for the license, then once they got approved, then they are able to, of course, they have to be responsible in conducting things like the suitability tests of the customers, doing basically their own due diligence about which of the customers should be provided access to cryptocurrencies and how much, right? Would it be 10%, 30% of the money deposited on the platform? So those are the decisions that the license exchanges are asked to do the homework based on guidelines provided by SFC.
Got it. So like based on, I guess, at least for HashKey and OCL who already gotten the license, based on what you have seen, like this process, how long does it take to be able to actually even grant the license itself?
Well, this is a question that's very common. A lot of people ask this question. So I think the way that I would like to address this is threefold. Now, first of all, a lot of chatters in the market. It's like, oh gosh, it took some time for OSL and HashKey to get the license. But that was like 2-3 years ago when there wasn't as much clarity about how the whole world is moving towards when it comes to regulatory framework. But now, particularly with the FTX debacle last year, it becomes almost like a consensus for a lot of jurisdictions around the world that, okay, investor protection is important, segregating, investors' assets away from assets of the exchange operators is important. So there are a lot of consensus that became, very clear by now. So, but that has been the stance of SFC from 2018 onwards. Now, so the point I'm trying to make is, yes, it took a bit longer in the case of OSL and HashKey. Now, with the new regulatory regime, now, because we meaning SFC industry have got more experience. So based on that time should be shorter than before. That's one. Now, secondly, when we think about some of the guidelines given by SFC, one of them is that the SFC invites, the license, invites the exchanges to basically bring in an external assessor to essentially conduct the whole sort of evaluation of the risk management process, what technology they use, what's the governance model and things like that. Now, so why would SFC do that? That's because the SFC understands that there's a lot of interest about the application of VASP, so that SFC will try to alleviate themselves being the bottleneck. So that's why, in a way, they're kind of like crowdsourcing this work, to the private sector with some capable firms, consulting firms, law firms, and so on. So once they've done the external assessment, of course, these are the firms that are highly reputed, that are trusted by SFC. So then, when SFC begins to evaluate the application, then a lot of the work has already been done by the external party, that external consultant. So this is a way for us to also fast track the application.
Got it. Very cool. So I'm going to quickly switch topic from exchange to another really hot topic I've been reading about is stablecoin. And in China, the DCP been rolled out for a few years already in certain cities. And I remember last time I came back to Hong Kong to visit you, I also got the chance to talk to some of the local banks, been super excited about being able to support this. So this is basically, instead of the SFC, is really managed by the Hong Kong Money Authority, equal to the Central Bank of Hong Kong. How does that look like? Is this really happening? And if so, when is that going to happen? It seems like Hong Kong MA is inviting a lot of various different banks to participate, to explore. Love to learn what's the latest on this one.
Well, I think as you would know, being a great advocate of Hong Kong, Hong Kong has always been a market-driven economy, in which we really listen to the inputs from the market, so that we are doing things in a way that makes sense from a commercial standpoint. Now, so when if you think about the whole sort of digital currencies developments, in a way there are two tracks. Now, one track would be the CBDC that has also captured a lot of attention in media. So, of course, in Hong Kong with HKMA, with the PBOC, People's Bank of China, with the Bank of Thailand, the Central Bank of UAE, and the BIS, the Bank of International Settlements. They've been working on this Enbridge project in a way to facilitate wholesale commercial banking grade cross-border payments using CBDC and the corresponding rails. Now, so that has been ongoing for a number of years. And in fact, in a report from PwC, in which they have essentially ranked the market readiness of the different jurisdictions. And actually, Hong Kong and Thailand were ranked number 1 in the world in terms of being the most ready to launch the commercial and wholesale cross-border CBDC. Okay, now, so this is one track. Now, on another track, there have been quite a lot of requests from the market about, okay, how about stablecoins? This is almost like the bloodline of some modern, more modern, digital economy, in which USDC and all these stablecoins have been so important. Now, so of course, Hong Kong being a very market-driven economy, we understand that something has to be done. Now, but of course, I think we also learned some lessons, right, from the debacles from the Luna that impacted some of the stablecoins, and even I think the collapse of one of the crypto-friendly banks. I mean, that immediately triggered a big drop, right, in terms of the price of the stablecoins. So things like that, we took this to mind. We meaning HKMA. Now, so essentially, the HKMA has been very cautiously talking to the industry players, through public consultation to get the ideas. So the first round has been done. So now they have kind of narrowed down the scope, and they're going to continue to talk to the industry. So at the moment, based on what we heard from HKMA, they're looking at probably early part of next year, 2024, to launch the stablecoins regulation. Now, but one thing to note, because I was in a number of the closed-door meetings with industry leaders and HKMA and so forth, the question was, so would HKMA be the one that issue Hong Kong dollar peg stablecoins? The answer is no. The answer is no. Okay. Now, and then would there be a cap on number of licenses to be given out to the stablecoins issuers from private sector? Now, at the moment, the answer is also no. Now, so the question is why, right? Now, so first of all, now I think the CBDC, chances are there will be like a stronger push for for the central banks, including Hong Kong and so forth. But then the stablecoins is more like a market activity. So we just feel that there's also room for innovation. So that's why the HKMA feels that by providing the licenses to the private sector players, they will be very motivated commercially to think about different use cases of stablecoins. So maybe we could see some new innovation. Now, at the same time, the regulation would essentially provide like a safety nets, so that I think the unfortunate events from last year or maybe early part of this year would not happen. So essentially, we have like two tracks going in parallel.
Okay, if I summarize what you just mentioned, first off, it will not be issued by Hong Kong MA, which means
correct.
Got it. But the regulation is going to be in place early 2014. So
2024.
2024. That's right. So let's say the regulation is in play early next year. Then do you foresee, let's say, Alipay or Visa? I saw the list of companies that Hong Kong MA is talking to, or it could even include Ripple from the US. And let's say if they come up with some really interesting use case, are you basically saying me as a private bank or credit card, you will be able to basically generate my own stable coin, Hong Kong stable coin, and as long as I'm under the regime or regulatory compliance? Is that what you meant?
Okay, so I think in order to clarify. Okay, so sorry. Yes, so to clarify this matter, now basically, I think we have to, again, the reason why I mentioned two tracks is that there are really like two developments going on about the same time. So that's why it could be confusing. So so allow me to clarify the picture. So I think what you have in mind is probably the Hong Kong dollar POCs. So I think last year. So okay, first of all, the past few years, HKMA and POC have been doing so much research about the impacts and implementation on the CBDC. So the technical feasibility was done. Okay. Now, and from what I understand, they also built like technical prototypes, like years ago. So that was done. So last year, what HKMA did was to, in fact, HKMA collaborated with us, Invest Hong Kong, in launching this, what we call the global fast track competition, the CBDC track. So this is a way, it's almost like crowdsourcing ideas, that we are able to invite many capable companies to suggest their ideas about what are the use cases, again, on CBDC, not stablecoins. Okay? Now, so after that, so number of firms won some awards. I think Visa won something. I believe Bank of China won something. Some startup won something, and so on. So there are a number of awards. Now, but then interestingly, during that competition, to be honest, initially when we talked to HKMA, we thought that the applicants to that competition would be mostly startups from around the world. But then to our surprise, there were a good number of really large financial institutions and very large conglomerates that also applied. And that's something that caught us by, basically pleasant surprised. Now, so because of that, then HKMA was able to identify some really capable and innovative companies to help them to figure out the next wave of, launching this to the market. So I think the comment you just made probably are referring to the 16 firms that have been chosen to run the pilots this year. Hopefully, I think the schedule works out, hopefully we will see something based on the results from these 16 firms at the Fintech Week in Hong Kong this year.
Got it.
So that's more on the CBDC, not stablecoins. I
see. So let's say if I am a startup coming from the US, and how can I engage be able to be part of doesn't matter from this is the Hong Kong dollar or CBDC. How do I get involved in it at all? Or the attitude should be, let's wait till these pilots come out with the 16 companies and see what happened. But for now, we don't really know yet because regulations won't really happen until early next year, nor we don't know how the pilot is going to look like yet.
Well, just now, as I mentioned, the two tracks. Now, because stablecoins is not anything new. So they are, again, I think this year has been super busy for us. Even myself, I traveled to San Francisco, to New York, to Toronto, Tokyo, London, Shenzhen. I'll be in Shanghai next week. So I've been like traveling all over the place for the past few months. Now, actually, of these places that I visited, I was very happy that I was able to meet with some stablecoin issuers in other markets. For example, there's one company in Canada that I met. They have already gone through I think a lot of dialogues with regulators in Canada. So okay, they could be interested to come to Hong Kong. The same applies to a company in Japan. They also have been issuing stablecoins. And by the way, they already have transactions. It's not like it's still on paper, building the systems. They're already transacting, right? So these are the companies I foresee would be the ones that would be the earliest wave of companies that come to Hong Kong to apply for the stablecoin license. So this is one way to participate. Now, when it comes to the CBDC, I think there are numerous ways to participate. But then I think right now, the reason why HKMA runs the various pilots is because they also understand there are so many different players throughout the value chain. So it could be, who knows, so it could be ethics. It could be just the transaction layer in terms of the robustness of the system. So there are many things that are security, right? So things like that they have to figure out in terms of who are the market experts in providing a certain segments of either technology or the day-to-day ongoing operation for the ecosystem. So I think they would like to use this upcoming POC as a way to figure this out.
Yeah, and this also sort of remind me that Circle, who's the creator of USDC, when they first started, they did a very smart partnership with Coinbase to really sort of get it going, to actually have real trading volume before they think about like other stablecoin and expand it to other countries. So that makes a lot of sense. Since you talked about earlier, and Hong Kong may engage 16 different financial institutes on the pilot, maybe we can shift the topic a little bit differently, which is government obviously are bringing in various different put basically now clear the wave, less of a cloud of a confusion. Now it's clear. And how about on the, let's say I'm a US company, I'm coming to Hong Kong. Sometimes the hardest thing is not actually regulatory, it's just day-to-day. Opening bank account. I hear a lot of startups sometimes complain, doesn't matter where they go, Hong Kong or Singapore and Dubai, when they actually land, even they get some license, when they're opening bank account, it's actually difficult. What's your thoughts around just in general? Let's say I'm coming and I want to set up a whole bunch of other things. Do you think other sectors from the banking or to other from opening off like physical space or renting space, is it easy? Like if I'm a Web3 companies want to come into Hong Kong, I saw some news today, even the government is trying to push the bank to be a little bit more open. I don't know, is this rumor or is this true?
Well, I wasn't in the room. I also heard the stories. I think I forgot which media that the regulator is supposed to like twist the arm of some of the major banks to do this. I have no idea, in all fairness. Okay, I wasn't in those conversations. Now, but then what I do know, in which I personally participated, would be, so let me share with you two observations. Now, first, we have been remaining like Hong Kong because we are one of the departments within the Hong Kong government that is so close to the private sector. So that's why we're able to collect a lot of market intelligence that we are able to feed back to the government leaders. So, I mean, the difficulties in opening bank accounts is nothing new. The senior guys, they know this for for some time. Now, but then I think it's just some kind of miscommunication that the regulator, HKMA, thought that they didn't really stop the banks from doing business with the licensed crypto firms, right? Firms like HKMA and OSL. Now, but then I think the banks, they were like, well, actually, yes, maybe regulated, they did not say yes. Then they did, okay, they did not say no, but they did not say yes clearly either, right? So there's been this kind of miscommunication for some time. So the HKMA heard this. So they came out, I believe this was in the end of April. I reckon it's probably like, April 25th, around that time. So the deputy chief executive of HKMA, Mr. Arthur Yeung, who basically heads up the banking supervision branch of HKMA. So he came out with a written statement on the websites of HKMA, press releases, everything, saying that HKMA does not feel that this is a sort of like essentially HKMA just said that it's a normal business of operation to do business with firms with digital assets DNA. And then they also provide more guidelines in that article. So that is at least to my recollection, that's the first time that the regulator was so clear, black and white, on their websites, stating the stance that the regulator is quite open-minded. Now, of course, I think having something written, I think probably by lawyers, sometimes those kind of circulars may not be easy to read and comprehend by normal business people. I think the compliance folks, of course, the compliance folks, they get it, right? But for normal business people, they may not totally get it. And then again, credit to HKMA. Between HKMA and SFC, they jointly invited 20 banks, 20 of the commercial banks in Hong Kong, together with various license exchanges, with some of the securities firms, different blockchain firms and so forth. It's like a room packed with people, something like I think like 50 people at least. So at that meeting, so I was there too, and that was, I believe, on 26th of April this year. So again, it was as open as it gets, in which the HKMA would be like a moderator, the moderating dialogues to make sure that there have been enough conversations so that if there's anything unclear, they just try to clarify it on the spot. So that meeting was also very helpful. So this is like one event. Now, another sort of series of events is that there are a number of banks in Hong Kong that have basically captured I think the attention by media, such as Bloomberg. So one of them was ZA Bank, so Z as a zebra, ZA Bank.
Yep.
I believe the CEO, Rano, he was interviewed by Bloomberg, and that really caught a lot of people with excitement. Oh, wow, great. Now the bank openly said that they are welcoming the digital asset companies to open bank accounts for them and so forth. Now, so that is, of course, there are other banks being mentioned by different media. So that's the few recent developments that showcase that Hong Kong has been quite open. But of course, we also are cognizant of the fact that we have to do risk management. So it's not like free for all. So initially they open up for the what they call home accounts. Now the banks will open home accounts. So that is the accounts to pay the bills, to pay the vendors and things like that. And then for the licensed firms by SFC, it doesn't have to be exchanges. It could be the licensed firms, like Type 1 license, Type 9 license, and so on. Because the rationale is, if those firms receive a license from SFC, they've been through this very rigorous process of evaluation by SFC, so they should be good. So then for those firms, then I think the banks, based on the guidelines provided by HKMA, they will be able to decide how much in opening up customers' accounts, customers' settlement accounts at the banks. So this is all, I guess, the latest development.
Yeah, makes sense. Like operating on a day-to-day, pay rent and pay payroll versus taking care of your customers' money is like definitely cannot be commingled. All right. My next question really is, I sort of got a lot of my own portfolio companies that is in the Web3 space, especially when they look at Asia as the next market they want to focus on. The number one question I ask, what's the difference between Hong Kong and Singapore? And both cities are amazing Asian cities, and I think recently, obviously, Singapore, in light of FTX, seems like slowed down a little bit, although I have a lot of friends in Singapore are still operating there. And I guess, from a just very practical, from an operating point of view, I'm a founder CEO. I really want to evaluate both. How would you sort of compare and contrast, and things that I should think about when I decided, should I headquarters in Hong Kong or should I headquarters in Singapore? Love to hear your thoughts.
Right. Now, of course, I now work for the governments. So there are certain things that I need to say and certain things that I shouldn't say. Now, but at the same time, I also came from the startup world. So I did a few startups myself. So I also feel that to be helpful to the entrepreneurs, I also need to be a straight talker so that people can get the relevant information. So with that, I guess the point I'm trying to say is I'm going to wear my sort of startup hat, okay?
Okay.
As opposed to the government hats, okay?
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
Right. Now, so, okay, if I were a founder, okay, so what would I care about? Now, and these are the comments I heard from numerous founders in Hong Kong that went to Singapore, I went to Singapore, came to Hong Kong. So people with knowledge of both markets. Now, some of them even went to Dubai. Okay, so I've heard a lot of comparisons.
Yeah.
Now, I guess to make it, more easier to digest, let me just highlight three. Okay. Now, first, when we think about again, Singapore has done a great job, and no fairness, the Singapore governments and also the regulators have been so strategic and also so visionary that they have planned their moves like years or decades ago. Now, credit to them. Okay. Now, but there are certain things that will be in the DNA in Singapore that is something that simply, in some ways, can compete in Hong Kong. That is the work efficiencies of the professionals, the professional firms. Now, naturally, in various financial space, it can be asset management, it can be virtual, you have crypto funds, you could be talking about family offices. Now, of course, there could be some government subsidies and whatnot. At the end of the day, you still have to get things done. And those things will be done by professionals, right? The professional accountants, professional lawyers, and so forth. Again, people always joke that maybe I think the professionals in Hong Kong just work harder. That we work, around the clock to get things done. So the efficiency is like hands down. Now, this is not the kind of thing that you can see normally in brochures. But you can just talk to entrepreneurs; they'll tell you the same thing. So this is one. Get things done much more effective and efficient. Now, secondly, the investment opportunities. Now, naturally, because of the push of the Singapore government, same applies to Hong Kong governments in attracting family offices. Because Singapore got a head start, probably by a year or so. So there's a pretty, a nice size of family offices that went into Singapore. Now, but from the comments, feedback we got from these family offices, all these ultra high net worth tycoons, they couldn't deploy the capital. They simply don't find enough projects, don't find enough investment, products to invest. So then, and then I talked to, colleagues or, industry players in the private banks, the asset managers, and so forth. It's like no comparison. Hong Kong has so much more, financial products to choose from. So that's why, in terms of, the variety of places where the capital can be deployed, Hong Kong hands down. Okay. Now, and then the third thing is when you think about just simply, it's just the way that things transpire. So Hong Kong is not just Hong Kong. Now, Hong Kong is really about playing a role to facilitate, I think, the next generation of commerce, playing a role as the next generation of world-class IFC. Now, if we step back for a moment, just think about what are the things that can really influence the future of finance. Now, what would that be, right? Now, CBDC could be one, right?
Mhm.
Tokenization of assets can also be one. And again, I would like to quote an interview of Mr. Larry Fink of BlackRock. I think it was like early part of December last year. So he also told the media that he also sees that tokenization of real world assets will be the next big thing. Now, so why would I bring this up? That's because just think about the amount of assets that Hong Kong, also by extension, mainland China, can tokenize. It's enormous. Okay, it's enormous. You can start with the SOEs, state enterprises, the large conglomerates. I mean, you name it. There's just so much assets that can be tokenized. So that can also boost the investment products offerings of Hong Kong. Now, CBDC, again, Hong Kong is very blessed that we have a very strong parent in mainland China, so that we'll probably be one of the key players that will influence the future of cross-border CBDC in not so distant future. So therefore, we are really in the driver's seats in defining the future of finance. That I simply don't think that, again, Singapore has done a great job considering, again, it's just a city-state. It's a fabulous job. I mean, Hong Kong is just blessed that we have a big country behind us.
Yep. Putting my investor cap hat on, I think when we advise company, we often always to think about number one is actually people, because if your U.S. companies coming to Asia in general, Asia is huge with many different languages, so really need to hire the right people to help you to helicopter style to just drop in for a couple of weeks doesn't make a great company. So it's very important to hire folks who really understand what you're working on. And that's not easy. And second, it really depends. I do think that, what King mentioned earlier, particularly on the Greater China, the Greater Bay Area market is over $1 billion. Is that right? No, over 100 million.
86 million population.
That's right. And I think the Bay Area here where I live in Silicon Valley is less than 10 million. So it's at least 8 times to 10 times bigger. So it's a very interesting market to think about. So I'm going to stop there because everybody's doing a little bit different things. So it really depends. And so now let's shift topic and then we will address some of the audience questions. So King, you mentioned that you've been traveling a lot from the US and you're going to Shanghai next week. So what exactly, or like in terms of Invest Hong Kong, how are you guys promoting this? When are you going to come to the US again? Well, I have so many people who would love to meet you to learn more. And a lot of people in the States, even though they don't know anything about Hong Kong, everybody was asking me about, am I going to get free flight to come to Hong Kong? So are you guys doing that too? Want to learn more about sort of your path of promoting all this, because there's certainly a lot more and more media coverage. More importantly, they want to know details. So how are you promoting all this?
Well, now first of all, we have been traveling a lot. And the channels that we use, I mean, I think the good way to think about it, we use the kitchen sink approach. So we throw out the kitchen sink. So everything that can be done, we will do it. Now, so the reason why I mentioned this is because, so naturally, as a government agency, we would go to some of the major conferences like Money 2020, the Innovate Finance in London, the Fintech, the festival in Tokyo. So we also are a strong supporter of the community too. So of course we would do that. Now, but at the same time, we would also value the power of social media, and we also recognize that in the Web3 world, I think those kind of conferences, yes, it's interesting, but it's seen to be a bit old school. So that's why starting from, I believe, early part this year, we began to do some Twitter Space, AMA, Ask Me Anything. Wow. Yeah. Well, again, we're still learning, but then we've been doing, I think we've done 7 or 8 AMA already. We'll keep doing it. We'll work with, I remember, I think the first one that we did, we invited the co-founder of Scroll, the high-flying layer 2 blockchain, the co-founder Sandy, to be our guests. And we kept on inviting different players like, Chainlink, Animal Brands, and all these well-known names. So we keep on doing that so that we are able to share the information with the Web3 native communities. Now, and then I would post on my LinkedIn all the time. And then we also work with a lot of the industry insiders, some of the very influential people, particularly the investors. So we try to, again, really try to have some deeper dialogues. It's almost like word of mouth. So again, we have been sort of finding the influences so that we're able to share what we have been doing with these influences. So for example, yesterday I met with a senior person as a world leading Western media in Hong Kong. So he looks after the entire Asia. So he's like a legendary reporter. So I had the privilege to meet yesterday. So I've been doing all that. So whatever that can get a message out, we'll do it. So this is one. Now, and secondly, we also want to do some real projects. So that's why we're evaluating the possibilities of working with some of the layer one chains. So for example, Polygon is now in Hong Kong. Avalanche has been quite active in Hong Kong for some time. Now, Stro, they also have some people in Hong Kong that we are now connecting them with the local universities that are producing some really smart like blockchain related talents. So that's why we have been just doing quite a lot at all fronts.
Nice, that's awesome. By the way, I don't know, you probably know this, but Solana is actually setting up their hacker house in Hong Kong, and it's coming on November 14th. And I'm super excited about it. I'll make a trip back just for that. And we have one audience, BB, is asking, by the way, kudos to you. I have never heard Invest Hong Kong done Twitter Spaces before. This is definitely really hip. What is the question actually online asking, what is the actual Twitter account Invest Hong Kong using for Twitter Spaces? Is it just at Invest Hong Kong?
Okay, good point. Let me look it up. Yeah, because my team helped me sign this up, and that's why we have younger teammates. In fact, I've been joking to a lot of the industry folks that it's not as convincing for me to talk about Web3. We need some younger faces. So that's why we have some young folks in my team who are now heading up our Web3 team. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm also learning a lot from my younger colleagues.
Yeah, while you're looking that up, does that mean that in terms of market that you are targeting, you for sure definitely mentioned China, so you're going there next week. That's one target market. You're also coming to the US. That's another group of folks. Are there other markets that you actually like sort of your top priority in terms of target market that you wanted to bring more companies to Hong Kong?
Well, first of all, I just double check on the handle, the Twitter handle, and I type it in the chat function. Is at Hong Kong Fintech.
Okay. Good to know. I will follow that right now.
Right.
Okay.
So so in a way, so sorry, I guess I somehow skipped my mind. Can you repeat the question again?
Yeah, the question is, since you're on Twitter and literally Twitter is for the whole world, and it sounds like you're going to China next week. You came to US before. Are there like priorities in terms of target markets for you in terms of bringing more startups to Hong Kong?
Well, first of all, Hong Kong is a very free place. Again, it's a free market economy. Like even the late Milton Friedman said, Hong Kong is the closest thing to like a free, free economy. Now, so the one thing that our philosophy is that we open doors for business for everybody. So we welcome everybody around the world. In fact, I think we have some guests coming in from Africa next week. Yeah, we welcome them. Now, but then when it comes to perhaps Web3, the blockchain infrastructure kind of projects, I guess Web3 in general. To be honest, I think the past few months of traveling also gave us some hints about where are the different concentration of talents and very capable firms. So when I was in the US, I met with so many like super smart people building amazing infrastructure projects. And again, I couldn't see as many in Asia. Okay, so in that sense, our at least initial observation is when it comes to like Web3 infrastructure, I think US is definitely it's like leading the pack. Now, and then when it comes to content, because Web3 also has maybe the gaming elements, right? I mean, the digital art element. So IP, intellectual property, is also important. So when I went to Japan, so essentially, I invited a few Web3 investors from Hong Kong to join us at the Tokyo trip, and they were so happy that they were able to meet with some, content owners that they would not be able to reach themselves. Because again, it's under the name of governments to make all these introductions and meetups. So in short, we just feel that it is important that we recognize. I think Japan has so much content that we can also leverage. They also help them to internationalize. Now, whereas for the rest of Asia, is also known for applications. Yes, it's not like super high tech, but then those applications that can drive, the customers' attraction. You can onboard more and more users. So applications seem to be something that Asia has done well, including Hong Kong. So this is where I think we see distribution, that different places have different DNAs. So that's my observation so far.
I definitely agree with you on that. And which is one of the questions was asking you about sort of how are you supporting sort of infrastructure layer, sort of the layer 0, or as you mentioned, Avalanche, Polygon. I mentioned Solana, of course, Ethereum. There's like layer 1 infrastructure sort of talent versus, the Japan and Korea. Or entire Asia is actually really crazy about NFT and Web3 gaming and all kind of like digital asset. You don't actually need to explain to anyone in Asia. Everybody gets it. So in that sense, it's really equal opportunities. So it depends on which region you will automatically attract different kind of talent, which is also from an investor point of view. That's how I see it as well. So I think like our audience wanted to ask you about what do you think about NFT? And I guess NFT, obviously there's the IP, the art, and the music side of it, but at the same time, it's also there are marketplaces and trading involved in NFT. Is that part being regulated, or what do you think about like sort of particular on the NFT side of things in Web3?
Well, the short answer is, okay, if the NFTs that we're referring to are truly non-fungible, that means they have the properties just like art, right? Every piece of art is unique. In that sense, then the regulator, namely SFC, will not regulate. Okay, so that's the truly non-fungible NFTs. Now, but of course, I think as people have new innovative ideas, then there'll be things like the fractionalization of NFTs. And in doing so, that looks like shares, looks like securities. And by then, SFC will come in and regulating just like they regulate the normal securities. So this is one. Now, by the same time, our SFC colleagues have been busy trying to launch new regulations. They have a long to-do list. There are other things that we would like to launch, things like SDOs and other aspects of the VSPs. So from my understanding, they've been observing very closely about the developments of the NFT market. So that's why I guess there could be new developments. But at the moment, again, non-fungible, no regulation, professionalized with regulation. That's NFTs.
Got it. I have a couple questions more. I'm going to shift the question to more on the investing side. And then there's a final question related to sort of the Bank of China with tokenized security and all that. I actually was not aware of that. But maybe, from a founder point of view, often we talk about regulations, we talk about banking, we talk about sort of as a market picking which headquarters. Maybe quickly we can chat on the sort of the landscape in terms of local Hong Kong investor. What are they interested in. And Sean, one of our audience, was like, seems like there's a big AI hype. Frankly, I look at AI, Gen AI stuff on like, I don't know how many, 10, 20 a day. It's just so crazy. Maybe we can quickly talk about sort of what's the landscape in Hong Kong. It seems like there's a lot of family office, there's corporate, there is maybe more a little bit early than late. Love to learn more about sort of their appetite and stage in terms of investor in Hong Kong.
Well, there are quite a lot of Web3 funds that probably domiciled in the Cayman Islands, but then the owners of those funds are either ethnic Chinese, and there are also some with other international backgrounds. Now, so they previously run their investment operation out of Singapore, and then now they come to Hong Kong too. Now, the main reason is because, as I just mentioned in the early part of this conversation, there aren't just enough projects to invest in Singapore. So that's why they're now interested to come to Hong Kong. Now, so as we are now welcoming more of these funds, then we have begun to get a sense about the size, the investment focus, who are the LPs and things like that. So let me just share a few observations. Now, first of all, many of these funds, now put aside the one from HK, the 600 million gorilla. Okay, most of the other Web3 funds that we have met, they're probably between 30 to 80 million AUM. Okay, I think there's a few outliers like 200 million or so, but that is within the 100 million range. Okay, now and then I asked them, so why would you raise more money? I mean, this is still reasonably hot in Hong Kong, and the answers that got from them is because I mean not just Hong Kong but globally, there aren't enough pretty high quality Web3 projects for them to invest in. So they would much rather to invest cautiously so that they're able to deliver like strong returns, the strong RRR, and then raise the next fund. So this has been a strategy for many of these funds. Now, and secondly, looking at the LPs, again, a lot of the usual suspects, some of the sovereign funds, some large financial institutions, including some large families. So these are usual suspects. But then, because that's one example I like to highlight as a kind of like a leading indicator. Okay. Now, of course, in China, in mainland China, it is banned to do like cryptocurrencies. Now, but then this is a space that really have captured a lot of interest. So some of the firms in mainland China, they have moved to Hong Kong to basically do things legally under our regulatory framework. Now, one of them is a state-owned enterprise insurance company. Okay. Now, insurance companies are known to be like super conservative. Okay, but they have an asset management arm of this really large, state-owned enterprise in China that have set up this asset management arm in Hong Kong, and then they went ahead to partner with a well-known Web3 infrastructure fund. So they built a JV set up in Hong Kong, and then I think the last time I checked, they were looking at I think 30 million or more of AUM. But then the interesting thing is they're now launching 2 crypto funds. Now, one focusing in primary market, the second in secondary market. Now, so the point I'm trying to make is, I guess I think we need to appreciate the magnitude of something like this, right? A state-owned enterprise in the insurance sector, they're now setting up a crypto fund in Hong Kong. I mean, the implication, can you just imagine if they somehow do reasonably well, then there'll be so much capital, right? In the mainland, they'll come to Hong Kong. I mean, under the proper law and regulation, do this kind of innovation. Yeah,
fascinating. I haven't heard of that one. Last but not least, we have a few more minutes left. Daiki Lee in our audience was asking about your thoughts on Bank of China issue a tokenized security on Ethereum in Hong Kong. That's definitely news to me. That just came out on CoinDesk 3 days ago. It's exactly what you said earlier in this conversation about tokenizing like real world asset. So it sounds like the Chinese bank is actually doing it. So this also, like, what's your thoughts about this?
Well, I have to confess, I saw the headlines, but I think this came out like yesterday or the day before. It's quite recent.
Yep.
But I didn't have time to drill down to it and also talk to our friends at BOC to find out more about it. But I suspect, again, I haven't fact-checked it. Now, I'm not surprised that the banks are doing some kind of tokenized launch, because I've been talking to the banks for the past at least 12 months, if not 18 months, that they would like to do this. So they've been, playing with it for some time. So I'm not surprised to see this. And secondly, it depends on which Ethereum chain they are working on, because there could be another, almost like a derivative, another variation of Ethereum that's built on the BSN network, in which they strip out the cryptocurrencies, so that people pay gas fee in, say, renminbi, US dollar, Hong Kong dollar, and pay in fiat. So they drastically lower the gas fee. So that's another project that's been ongoing in Hong Kong for the past 2 years. So it could be that too, but I have to double check.
That's right. And as you mentioned, I'm going to also put it on the comment section down here. This is the BSN network that you mentioned that has rolled out from a few years ago, which is, so everything is open source, right? So a lot of time you can fork it and build another version of it. But certainly, like, technically, I think sounds like many Chinese banks and insurance companies are exploring this area from a technology pilot, technically, to roll things out, to actually investing in various different companies and projects. They're getting more and more active, and sounds like Hong Kong is a testing ground and sandbox in many cases. Doesn't matter if it's for bigger banks or insurance, or also for smaller guys as well. So we're down to the last 2 minutes. I'm always known for being on time, and I know this is early morning and King still need to go to the office. And I know there are many other questions that our audience may want to ask, but just since we don't have enough time, so King, final, just to wrap this up, if we wanted to, oh, by the way, I'm supposed to give a quick plug also on a organization that just got launched also 2 weeks ago, is the Web3 Harbor, and set up by Gary Liu, who's the former CEO of SCMP. Gary's been evangelizing the industry quite a bit and bringing a lot of the regulator. I think, King, you and I actually met through Gary, and really, like, he's been putting a lot of work into bringing from the auditor to legal to a lot of the industry players together. So Gary also, and the web3harbor.org, I think, also a great resources for folks to go to. But King, if our audience want to ask you more questions and connect with you and ask more specific things what they're working on, what's the best way to connect with you?
Well, I think the folks on the call can easily find me on LinkedIn, so King Leung at Invest Hong Kong. And then again, I don't pretend to be experts in everything, because I have a very good team, and we have different experts within our team who can help you out with the more specific questions. Awesome.
Cool. With that said, King, thank you so much for taking the time this morning. I think what we discussed is super valuable for founders worldwide, Web3 and non-Web3. And hopefully I will see you in Hong Kong very, very soon. And I look forward to bringing more awesome founders to Hong Kong.
Awesome. So thanks a lot. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Bye, King. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.